You just opened someone's profile, not because you wanted to, not out of curiosity, but because something inside quietly needed to know how far ahead they are compared to you. That's not curiosity. That's a measuring tape with your name on it. And the comparing doesn't stop. Their apartment, their relationship, their career, their confidence, and in seconds, your mind has already measured it against your own life. Then it hits. Not jealousy, not anger, just a small, uncomfortable ache, a tightness in your chest, a quiet drop in your stomach. And underneath it all, one question pops. Why not me? Why don't I have that yet? What am I missing? What did they do that I didn't? Here's the truth. It's not about them. It's about a gap you think you see inside yourself. And in that moment, it feels painfully real. I want you to hear this first. You are not defective. You are not shallow. You are not weak. Comparison is one of the oldest tools the human brain has ever built. Your ancestors survived in part because of it, who had more strength, more food, better shelter. It kept people alive. The problem isn't that you compare. The problem is what you're comparing and what you think it says about you. Social comparison theory, first described by psychologist Leon Festinger in 1954, tells us this. Humans have a deep, instinctive need to evaluate themselves, not against ideals, but against other people. It's wired in. It's not a flaw, and it's absolutely human. But here's where it gets tricky. Comparison moves in two directions. Upward comparison, looking at someone ahead of you. Downward comparison, looking at someone behind you. Most people stuck in the loop are almost exclusively looking up, never sideways, never inward, always up, and the stairs never end. That's the trap. Here's the science behind the ache you feel. Researchers found that comparing yourself doesn't make you envious. It activates your sense of self-discrepancy. Self-discrepancy theory tells us we hold three versions of ourselves at once. The actual self, who you are now. The ideal self, who you dream of being. The ought self, who you think you're supposed to be. That painful gap, that's where the ache lives. Other people don't create it, they just make it visible. You're measuring yourself against an internal standard absorbed somewhere along the way. Maybe a parent, maybe a culture, maybe a story you were told about what success should look like. And often, that standard has nothing to do with what you actually want. You've been trying to pass an exam you never agreed to take. Here's something most videos about comparison never reveal. Comparison is a defense mechanism. It protects you from the bigger question. What do I actually want? And am I moving toward it? When you constantly measure yourself against others, you can outsource your definition of progress. You never have to answer the hard question. This is called identity foreclosure. Adopting goals and values without ever questioning if they're truly yours. Constant comparison is identity foreclosure in motion. You're using someone else's life as a template for your own. Your ego survives on contrast. It needs someone to measure itself against. Am I ahead? Behind? Not enough? Comparison isn't a sign that your ego is too big. It's a sign that your sense of self is too fragile to exist without external confirmation. That's not a flaw, it's tender news. Fragility isn't permanent. It happens when identity is built from the outside in instead of the inside out. Research shows that habitual comparison makes people significantly less happy. Not because others are better, but because the act reinforces the belief that your worth depends on external measures. Every comparison is practice in believing you can be measured. And once you believe that, someone will always be taller, richer, further ahead. The ruler never runs out. Why do we do this? Often because at some point, our worth felt conditional. Maybe love, attention, or safety arrived only when we performed. Attachment theory tells us early relationships form blueprints for connection. The child who learned to stand out to feel safe becomes the adult constantly checking where they stand. Comparison isn't ambition. It's the old need to prove, I belong here. And here's the kicker. Even when you win the comparison, relief lasts minutes. Then someone else shows up. Because relief isn't about being ahead. It's about not feeling behind. Desire versus fear. They feel alike but are worlds apart. You can't uninstall comparison. It's a brain tool that's been used for 10,000 years, but you can change what it measures. The only comparison that strengthens instead of drains is the one that measures growth, not status. Not someone else's wins, not their timeline, only your own. Compare today's you to the you from 6 months ago. That version didn't know what you know now and didn't have your resilience. That's temporal self-appraisal, and it consistently links to higher well-being, stronger motivation, and a stable identity. Now, when you stop scanning the room and checking who's ahead, you no longer need others to stumble to feel steady. Success stops feeling like a threat. You notice what you actually want, not the goals you absorb from the world. Comparison isn't just a habit. It's a form of self-abandonment. Every minute spent measuring others is a minute not spent with your own life. Your life, this ordinary, unrepeatable day, doesn't need to be justified by anyone else. It just needs to be lived. There's a version of you that stops looking sideways, that checks in, not checks up, that measures depth, not distance. They're not further ahead. They're just more here. Ask yourself, what would you build if you never learned to compare yourself to anyone else?